Lessons. Good to see y'all come out today. Through knowledge of Majestic and the good people working there that's put together for you. Pittsburgh, you know, one of my homes in my life. So the Hill District. My pops had a little small bodega right off Central Street. A little further down, I think, past Kirkpatrick, but this was some time ago, more than 20 years ago, yo. Yes, sir. But you know, back then, crack was a big problem. In fact, crackheads used to come into the store and get into fights and things like that. But you know, every generation we strive to get things better and make ourselves better. So you know, things like this, I think, is a great positive thing that, you know, to bring to the community and make it better. And I know we get better. We strive very hard. You know, Pittsburgh has a code name, the Iron City. You know, and iron is something that is very durable, something that's strong and lasts throughout time, like these bridges last throughout time. And so the same thing with people. You know, we gotta have that resilience and that strength to you know, survive and to last throughout time. And you know, every day, you know, I say in the Bible it gave us a quote that a day to God is 1,000 years. So in one day you can make a change that could affect people for 1,000 years. When you make that proper change. You look at some of the great men in history. One of the greatest men in history that we all know about is a brother named Jesus. And the thing about a man like that who walked the earth, they say about 2,000 years ago, and we still talking about it. And when he was walking the earth, maybe he had 12 people, according to the story, he had 12 disciples that was checking him out, you know? But then he got 1 billion people all around the world quoting his words and trying to use his life as an example to their life. If you go into the Middle East and you read about a brother named the Prophet Muhammad, and you see when he first started teaching his ideas to the people, you know, he was persecuted. Nobody listened to him. Nobody believed him. First he had a few followers. But when he finally left the holy city of Mecca to take his way of life and share with the world, it was only 70 people. Just 70. And it's over 1 billion people read his book and follow this philosophy. If you go way over to China, and you hear about a man called Siddhartha Gautama, which we call the Buddha. And in his mid-20s, he woke up one day, his wife had a baby, and he left. He left his wife, left the baby, broke out like many of us do, right? But he traveled and tried to find himself. And after deep meditation and contemplation, sitting under a tree, he found himself, he found his enlightenment. Then he returned back to his family. And because of his self-analysis of himself and his self-meditation, he was able to help other people find themselves. One of his first students became his wife. His second student became his son. And they became enlightened. But by the time Buddha died, they said he had about 500 students. Just 500 men. And after you check around the world, 1.4 billion. So one day in one life can inspire and change the entire world. You never know where it's going to come from. You know what I mean? You know, young brothers like this crowd, you'll be surprised how much power and influence you got right inside yourself, right inside your cells. It's just waiting to manifest and blossom like a full-blown tree, you know? So keep that in mind and keep striving.
That's peace. So what we want to do is just kind of, you told us about Pittsburgh and your history here, but now let's talk a little bit about chess, right? So how did you get introduced to chess? And well, how old were you? How did you get introduced? And how as a young person did you utilize it?
Yeah, for me, I got a funny story about learning about chess. I'm kind of embarrassed to say it in front of some of these young brothers, but I share it with you. There was a girl living upstairs from me. She was older, kind of a little advanced, you know, in her life. And so she was pretty freaky, you know. And so she taught me how to play chess took my virginity in the same night. But being that she took my virginity and I was able to go in and hang out with her and get my freedom on, I would go every night and I would play a game of chess and we do the home seat or whatever. But it's funny, right? But the crazy thing about this, though, in all reality, was I never forgot the game of chess, and the love of it, and it grew something important for me. But the sad part of the story is that this same young lady who grew up prematurely and, was advancing her years, by the time she reached adulthood, she became a full-blown lesbian. You know what I mean? And I think it came from her premature experience with men, sex. Maybe, I heard the rumor that somebody in her family had tampered with her. That's why she was so promiscuous in the beginning. But she did teach me how to play chess. And she taught me that the most valuable piece on the board was the queen. And for many years, that's how I played. That the most valuable piece on the board is the queen. But as I started to study the game more, I had to change that theory.
What's the most valuable piece to you, as you see? Or is there a most valuable piece?
Well, the most valuable piece on the board is the king. Because you can lose the queen and the game goes on. So therefore the king becomes the most valuable piece. But the jewel of it is that in active duty, the queen is the most powerful. So that goes back to the household. Your woman is the most powerful thing in the house. She's the one who's nourishing the child, who should be keeping the home clean and taking care of all the nourishment and letting the family grow. But she does that for the benefit of the king, so that he can go out and strive and struggle and fight the wars, do the harvest and bring home what we call the provisions. Kings don't build castles for kings. They build castles for queens. And once you have a queen in the castle, that's when you become a king. Now when I started to play chess more, I started studying it even deeper, I came to my own theory, and I'll share this with this audience here. My theory is that the king and the queen, when you play the game of chess, are all expendable. Because you are playing the game. So therefore, you got to put yourself in, I would say, in God's mind. And these pieces are your world, you're trying to control. And the same thing happens with your family. Sometimes, we pray for God to come to us to help us. But the ability to help you or to help yourself, God has already given it to you. But man don't use it. So you got to turn to a statue, turn to a book, turn anywhere besides turning inside himself. If you take a small study of yourself and look at the board of chess, chess has 64 squares lined up in 8 different columns. There are 64 in 8 columns. We'll take the number 8 first. The number 8 is considered the number of infinity. And 64 is actually a mathematical number that's used in many forms of creation. When you go back to the Chinese study, they have what they call the Book of the I Ching, which is the study of the universe. And it has 64 hexagrams. When you go into man himself, when the sperm cell first meets the egg cell, they form one union. And then they split. And they split. And they split. And so 2 become 4, 4 become 8, and then it becomes 64 cells. And that 64 cells become the first cluster of life. And we all start from this 64 cells. And we multiply ourselves on to be a human being. So when I look at chess and I look at things like that, I look for the mathematical relation. So when a man is playing chess, it activates your mind. It helps your mind to exercise itself. And if you can figure out certain problems and certain analytical way of thinking on a game of chess, that allows you to do that in real life. So I'm the kind of person that even coming here to the hill, which I'm happy to come back here and hang here, but I just calculate things that can go right and go wrong at the same time. you know? So, even though a man had to handle with some of these situations, I brought an extra man to help me. You know what I mean? Just in case. You know, when you think analytical, you're able to see the problem ahead of time before it happens. You're able to be a few moves ahead of things. And this is very important, especially in a young man's life, because most of us are spontaneous. You'd be surprised to see how many brothers are locked in jail because of that quick thought. They didn't think twice about it. They didn't think 3 times about it. How many young girls walking around with teenage pregnancy because of that quick instinct, that quick thought? She didn't think twice about it. You know, she didn't realize that this 10, 20 minutes, she get lucky, maybe an hour, of enjoyment could lead to a lifetime, you know what I mean, of situations of taking care of a child, raising a child, and dealing with somebody else's life in their hands. We don't realize that. We don't realize the STDs that come. A brother don't realize that just that quick moment that it took for them to either rob that material or to sell that drug. You know, when I was growing up, crack was the biggest drug. And they had for every gram of crack was 1 year. Now, a gram of crack costs about $15 on the wholesale price, right? That means a man's life was only worth $15 a year. And most of us are in jail right now. They got many young people in jail 10, 15, 20 years over this old crack laws. Right now, I see on this being Russell Simmons and a few other good brothers, Ludacris involved. A lot of brothers are now sending President Obama a letter to hopefully change some of the laws that was put heavy on us in the 80s and 90s on the crack laws. Maybe we would get some of those brothers home early. Because what happened was a lot of those brothers were young, needed money, and they got involved with the fastest way to make it. They didn't know that their whole life would be changed indefinitely. And at the same time, our system should have punished them like that. You know, hustling is not really a very negative criminal act. It's only criminal because of the illegal thing we're selling. You know, the drug itself is criminal to sell that particular drug. But if you think about it, in the 40s or the 30s, alcohol itself was illegal. And Al Capone and all these guys would sell it, and the FBI would chase them down and shoot at them. But people still drink. And now there's a liquor store in every corner where that same thing that was illegal is legal, being taxed, and we party every weekend on it. So there really was no crime being committed. It was just a man that had a product he was trying to sell to get his money and to help himself out. But they made that become a serious crime for us, and we lost a lot of people in jail over that. Now, when it comes to violent crimes, though, that's a crime. That's an act not only against your fellow man, it's an act against your own nation. Think about a man that works all week, right? He works 40 hours a week. Gets up in the morning, gotta go to work, kiss his wife, come back home, go to bed, get up. And by the end of the week, let's say you get a check for $600, $700. Did 40 hours. Walks out the bank, got his money, about to head home to his family. God comes out the back. In 10 seconds, him over there, take his money, and it's gone. That's a crime. Because this man took 40 hours of work and left his family every day to go get that. And here you come with the lazy way out, with the foolish way out, and in 20 seconds you're taking his whole earnings. Now, they catch you for that, you deserve to be punished for that. Because you're not taking the first law of nature for yourself, with this self-preservation. And that comes about when a man gets up and go to work every day. In the book of Genesis, when Adam and Eve, according to the story, when Adam and Eve got kind of exiled from the Garden of Eden because of their disobedience to God, God told Adam that you shall now work to the sweat of your brow. That means every day you got to get up and work for a living. Plow the land, plant the seed, But in doing so, he came in abundance. You put one seed, one apple seed in the ground, it gives you a tree. And that tree has thousands of apples on it. So for one seed, you get an orchid. For one kernel of corn, you get a cornfield. This is what God tells them, be fruitful and multiply, but he has to go and work and plan. Now I notice this from my own life, is that after you work all day, I usually eat one meal a day at my age now. But after I work all day, the water is fresher, the food is more tastier. Because then your body deserves the nourishment that it worked for. So a man should never be ashamed to work. Don't never think that getting up, whether you're going to school, whether you're going to work, or whether you're just going to help your grandma do something. Never be ashamed to get up and activate yourself and put work in, because the reward of it is multiplied.
Okay. So I know at one point you have a line that says he works out the city like he can. You know what I mean? And talking about that whole process. So what I want to do is kind of move a little bit over and talk about your strategies as far as it pertains to music and the different things you mentioned, the man with the iron fist. And how can we talk about young people or just our community as a whole? What kind of strategies, playing off chess, playing off any other things that you deal with, that can help folks survive these turbulent times, that can help people survive in spaces that don't seem very open to them and seem like they don't want to help them or act in their best interest? What kind of strategies would you suggest in these worlds that you're in?
Well, for me, I come probably from the same beginnings as all of us. You know what I mean? And I come from a family with 11 brothers and sisters. But what I did a lot was I read a lot. And so the first thing that traveled for me was my mind. Sometimes you will be stuck somewhere, you can't, there's nowhere to go, but your mind is never trapped. It can travel the universe at any given time. So for me, I let my mind travel first. And then when I got a chance to express my creativity, I expressed it. And it led on to greater things. But to give you an example of something like that, let's take me as a hip-hop artist. People look at me, I'm rapping on stage, and I'm expressing what is known as art. And when I was doing hip-hop, the people in the buildings in the industry were telling me that the kind of hip-hop I was doing would never sell. It's too hardcore. You guys got on hoodies, you need to be more like Will Smith and MC Hammer and all the pretty boys. Right. And we was talking about how we were high school dropouts, felons, you know what I mean? But we lived that hip-hop culture. And we was making our music. Now, as time went on, people accepted this music. And we wound up selling millions of records, and we brought ourselves out of poverty. But they still look upon me and my crew as a bunch of just black guys from the hood that did hip-hop. They wouldn't look at us as being an artist, because they didn't recognize that what we were doing was an art form. But I recognized it. And so then I took that same energy and I started applying it to other forms of art. So instead of just making a beat for somebody to rap on, I made music that could be played to movie scenes. And once I started making music for movie scenes, I got a chance to meet movie directors. And I saw that they was working on the same way that I was working on. And so therefore, I started practicing how to become a movie director. In order to know how to direct, I had to know how to act. And so I took a job as an actor. It was the most embarrassing thing for me because I was already famous. I had enough money to take care of myself. I had to go sit in front of some people that was, maybe 4 feet tall, less physical attraction. They're telling me what I got to do to get a job, you know what I mean? You gotta sit there. It's very humbling experience, actually. You go there, and you try out the part, and okay, stand on the wall, let me see, how was your guy? You gotta act like you're behind this, you know what I mean? And looking at you. I felt embarrassed. But I had a determined idea. I wanted to run, I wanted to do something different with my art. So thus I did it. And after about 10 tries, one of the directors recognized what I was doing and gave me a shot. And once he gave me a shot, that led to many other shots. So every time I got in front of the camera, I started looking at what was happening behind the camera. And after about 5 years of that, I went to a good man named Quentin Tarantino. Asked him to become a student. And I want to share this with everybody here, yo. Never be shy to ask somebody to teach you something, man. That's one thing we have is, we know, as being, especially us as black people and Americans have a strong sense of pride. We're the greatest country. Pittsburgh, the greatest team.
Yeah.
You know, I'm watching the news today, and the man said, the governor from Texas, they had a big explosion. He's like, you know, and everything is pretty bad, and we had our paramedics, our EMS, we have the best in the country. Then the next time on Boston, they had a couple of bombs, and he gets up there. Yeah, the people in Boston, we got the best doctors in the country. You know, man. Look, we all strive to do what we can do. You know what I'm saying? It's always somebody better. Don't get yourself so prideful you think that you are the best at everything. So even though Quentin Tarantino was a guy that was totally different from me in one way, he had some knowledge that I needed to obtain. And fortunately for me, I had some knowledge he wanted to obtain. He always wanted to make beats. He's like, how do you make it with that MPC thing? And so we exchanged knowledge. And I took that knowledge and I became a movie director. And I made the film with them, and I would make more films for us to continue on and show our culture and show our